Bwana Waziri kwa sababu anaweza kujibu. Ya kwanza ni kushukuru Waziri wa Hazina na Fedha kwa sababu alipata kiti ambaye ya kusaidia mambo ya fedha na kwa hii serikali ya muungano na mpaka kulionekana anaweza kufanya hiyo kazi. Bwana Waziri, kwa hivyo ni pongezi. Bwana Waziri, swali langu ni katika Embu County mambo ya fedha huwa imeselewa sana, na unajua tulikubali kwa hii kipindi ya serikali ya muungano kila pesa iwe ikienda county kila mwezi. Lakini Embu County mwezi wa 7, mwezi wa 8 na mwezi wa 9, miezi 3 wanja kuweza kupata pesa, na kumekuwa na maramishi ya mambo ya pending bill na wage bill na mambo ya agriculture. Pia ile shida kubwa sana ni pesa ya kununua dawa. Kwa hiyo ningeomba Bwana Waziri kama uko na uwezo ya kujibu, hata kama speaker amesema yes kuwa inafanana zile unaulizwa hapa leo, najua uko na njia ya kujibu hiyo swali, na iende ikawa Embu County peke yake, ni tuko county 47. Asante Bwana Speaker.
Senator Mutenda Tabita.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me also to register my remarks by congratulating the Waziri, because he's the first Waziri to appear before this Senate as Waziri of, as a Minister of Finance, because the other one never appeared. My quick question, Waziri, is on the issue of application for the ID cards. ID cards application costs 300 shillings, and ID replacement costs 1,000 shillings. But what is your take as the Minister for Finance for scrapping off completely the cost of anybody acquiring an identity card in this country, because we are all citizens by virtue that we are born in this country, and bringing this cost totally to zero? And lastly, who owns eCitizen? And if government owns eCitizen, why then do we have double charge, whereby you have the amount that you are paying, and then still there's an additional cost, as you earlier mentioned, in regards to the processing fee? Then why do we have double cost? But just clarify, who owns eCitizen? Thank you, Speaker.
Senator Veronica Ndwati.
Welcome, Honorable CS, and congratulations on your new appointment. Honorable CS, I want you to tell this House whether there is any plan or strategy to onboard SHIF on eCitizen, and whether the data that is on NHIF can be migrated to SHIF to avoid the cost of running another system to manage that data. Is there any plan, and how soon is that plan going to be rolled out? Onboarding SHIF onto eCitizen.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Waziri, congratulations first for the appointment. My name is Abbas Mohammed, Senator for Wajir, and I share the evolution. Actually, there's a big concern of delay of release of funds to the counties. It takes a long time, almost sometimes up to 4 or 5 months. And as a result of that, counties are forced to get salaries from the banks at a higher cost with a high interest rate. And members, reductions for the certain reductions are not submitted in time, and they're given, given penalties for that delay. I think, I don't know what your ministry is going to do as a result of the delays of salary release, fund release, and also the penalties from KRA and other certain reduction, institutions like Love Fund, all this, they also put interest on the delay of the certain reductions. So what is the ministry planning to do to curtail that kind of unnecessary penalties that the counties are facing, and why is the salary for the fund for the counties been delayed so much?
Senator Faki.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Mimi pia najiunga na maseneta wenzangu kumkaribisha Waziri John Mbadi katika bunge la Senate na pia kumpa kongole kwa kuchaguliwa kwake kama waziri katika serikali. Mheshimiwa Spika, dukuduku langu ni kuhusiana na hilo swala la ucheleweshaji wa fedha kwa kaunti zetu, kwa sababu tumeona kwamba baada ya kuondolewa kwa mswada wa fedha wa mwaka 2024-25 kumekuwa na sitofahamu kuhusu ni vipi wataweza kupeleka pesa katika kaunti zetu. Mheshimiwa Spika, nakumbuka mwaka 2019 tulikuwa katika hali hii, lakini wakati ule serikali ilikuwa mamlakani ilipeleka asilimia fulani ya fedha kwa kaunti zetu. Kwa hivyo waziri, hebu tueleze ni sababu gani hizi kaunti haziwezi kupewa asilimia fulani mpaka asilimia 50 ya zile fedha ambazo walipewa mwaka jana ili waweze kutumia na kukidhi mahitaji yao wakati tunangojea sheria mpya itakapokuwa tayari. Asante.
You may proceed to respond. Now, honorable senators, if you look at your order paper, the honorable CS is here for purposes of responding to 4 questions. Now, the question asked by Senator Faki, the question asked by Senator Mundigi, and the question asked by Senator Abbas. Those supplementary questions are related to the question which is going to be asked by Senator Muma. So we don't have to ask everything now because there are 3 more questions, and a lot of the questions that are being asked actually are related to the questions that are yet to be asked. Honorable CS, you may proceed to respond. There's one limb of Senator Ledama's question that you had not responded. How much is paid to the service provider, and whether that has been audited? Proceed. You may proceed. How much is paid to the service provider annually, and whether that has been audited?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the amount of money paid to the service provider fluctuates, and it depends on the number of services offered. But in terms of details, this can be provided by ICT Authority. I know that we pay on average about 180 million per year. Let me just consult 1 minute, Mr. Speaker, on that.
You may proceed to Honorable CS. You may proceed to respond to that questions.
Yeah, so on the specifics of the amounts, we may need to check and supply. But the information, monthly payments, if the Honorable Senate would want, we would still supply it. In fact, we have all the data from the time when this contract was entered into, all the amounts. Now let me respond to the specific questions by Senator Esther. I've not forgotten you. Sometimes, you know, when you are...
Senator Fonandi, take your seat.
Sometimes when you are graduating in age, we don't say you are advancing, but you are graduating in age, your eyes sometimes become, start misbehaving. But we also, politicians don't like wearing specs. You'll notice most politicians, even when they get to 70, 80, they don't like wearing specs, apart from a few like the leader of minority and Senator Faki. But let me respond by saying that why are hostels still being owed? I think there have been challenges with NHIF. Generally, that is why the government even saw it fit to change the system. There has been a lot of fraudulent activities around NHIF in terms of collusion with service providers, the hostels, and that has complicated the management of this fund. But I would assure this House that there is a high-level engagement to ensure that all pending bills are paid. A lot of pending bills are also owed to NHIF, even by government institutions. And I have the figure. The last meeting we had of a cabinet meeting engaged in this exercise, we agreed that Treasury will work very closely with the ministry to ensure that NHIF, we pay the money that is owed to NHIF so that NHIF can also pay the hospitals for a smooth transition to the new system. So there is work going on that. To Senator Chute, final dues not paid since 2020 to a Kenyan, that is very unfair. Actually, let me also confess that I almost said my constituency, but the constituency I've represented for 15 years. There's a lady who yesterday sent me details of her husband, the final dues, and she wants that paid. The husband was a former assistant chief. So there is a problem with the payment of final dues, and this is something that will take. So if I could get for the case, so that we address this specific case, but I think we need to have a clear vision on how to resolve all the cases so that they don't come one by. There are people who may not access a senator or a member of parliament. But on this particular one, Senator, you can give us the details and we'll be able to follow it. Senator Wamatinga, the plans to reintroduce Huduma numbers, especially on issues of land compensation. I want to be very clear that what remains the standard document in this country as proof of your being a Kenyan or as a proof of your existence in this country is still national ID. And that is, to me, the anchor point. These others, we can look for ways of integration, integrating our systems, but we must anchor it on national ID. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, to address the issue of pending bills. The pending bills, I think the issue of Senator Kavindu is again on pending bills. I think I addressed that earlier when I was addressing issues that were raised by Senator Esther. Okay? And then on the issue of issues raised by Tabitha, Senator Tabitha, where application for IDs, and then I think the application for IDs take too long. Maybe I didn't capture it well.
Senator Tabitha.
Just maybe clarify.
Honorable CS, have your team help you by noting down these questions.
Yeah.
I was just asking, the application fee is 300.
No, I got it.
Replacement fee is 1,000.
I get it now. I get it now.
But my question was, why don't we then bring it to zero cost, since we are Kenyans and we deserve to have the idea, what's your take? And then who owns e-citizen?
Yeah, the one for each citizen I captured. Now, on the ID, Senator, interestingly, I agree with you. Actually, I'm one of the people who are in this school of thought that you don't have to pay to be registered as a Kenyan if we can take up this cost. And not long ago, I spoke to this differently. I don't want to speak a different language because I'm today a CS. I don't think it is wise to charge for new applicants. Maybe you can charge for replacement because, again, you need to be careful. When you are given a national identity, you need to protect it so that you don't lose it. But when you are applying for the first time, I am in agreement that this is a fee that needs to be reconsidered. I now sit in the government. I will use that platform to speak in the line that you are speaking. Once the government takes that position, then I will now join the government in speaking the position of the government because I'm in the cabinet. I hope you understand the difference there. Who owns each citizen? Each citizen is now run by the government. And why we pay, I think I explained that you pay for convenience. That is why it is called convenience fee. So you may have a problem with it, but that is the rationale for which it was introduced. It can be debatable whether it's a wise idea, but you pay for convenience, because in the absence of this each citizen, it was quite inconveniencing to get government services. And Senator Veronica, a plan to onboard chief onto e-citizen. As we speak, there is high level of engagement in the government to see how to integrate all this system. And I think very soon we will be able to onboard all this shift onto the e-citizen, because it's now the standard government payment platform. And we have seen that we have reduced, let me not say eliminated, reduced leakages of public funds the moment we resorted to this single account, the 22222. So we must onboard shift to the e-citizen. The last question is, I was asked by about 4 senators, and I'll combine it because it's one answer. Senator for Embu was the first one to ask, and he asked in Kiswahili. You'll forgive me, I'll answer it in English. And then Senator for Wajir County, the Senator Bass, and of course Senator Faki of Mombasa, asked about the transfer of funds to the counties. I need no persuasion that transfers of funds to the counties must be done timeously. And I think we had agreed that it should be on 5th of the following month. And that we need to follow religiously. I know we have had quite a bit of challenges in terms of cash flow, but the problem that we have had at the beginning of this financial year was not entirely on cash flow. Actually, it doesn't help National Treasury to keep piling transfers to counties. It doesn't, because we just end up with huge bills to pay at a specific time. So we are very comfortable with regular and continuous transfers. However, the problems that we encountered at the beginning of this year is primarily, number one, was the legal challenges or the legal issues. There were 2 schools of thought, because the senators are aware that we haven't passed the CARA for 2024-25. The houses, the 2 houses have not passed CARA. So there were 2 schools of thought. There was one school of thought which believed that we cannot transfer money to the counties until and unless you have 2 critical pieces of legislation. That is the DORA and the CARA. Then there's another school of thought where, fortunately, I belong, that we have regulations in place which allow that you can transfer up to 50% of the previous year's allocation, which in this case was 385 billion. But again, to be very careful and be clear, my office had to seek legal opinion from the Office of the Attorney General, which fortunately we got. And the Attorney General was in agreement with the second school of thought where I belong. Now, so in July, we cleared the last financial year, 2023-24. We paid 30.8 billion in July to clear that financial year. Then last week, we paid July allocation, and we paid 31.8 billion to counties. So we haven't paid the August and now September allocations. But I would guarantee that we are making plans to make another payment for the month, at least one more payment. My aim is to make sure that we cover the, because we seem to be having a deficit of not less than a month. So we will try to catch up. Before the end of this year, we must catch up so that we don't have any outstanding amount to the counties. But having said that, because senators are also responsible for oversighting the counties, I want to say this, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, that let us also try to put pressure on the counties to be able to sort out their issues with the control of budget. so that we don't have huge balances sitting in the CRF account. As we speak today, there is 42 billion which has not been absorbed or taken up by counties. And the details are there. I don't want to go to the specific details of the counties. We have 42 billion, 380 million, 773,000. That counties have not been able to access. The money is there in the CRF account, 38.2 billion. And again, another 3 billion under recurrent, and another 969 million under development vote. So we need to have absorption which is smooth, because as an accountant and as a finance expert, the last thing you'd want to see is balances accumulating in idle accounts. It doesn't add value to the economy. It slows economic growth, because we need, once the money is transferred to the CRF, it should go to the counties, pay salaries, pay whatever recurrent, and pay and get into development. Because as we speak, largely the development money should be with the counties. The national government the development budget is shrinking by the day. So I don't want to go beyond that. Maybe another day we'll have opportunity now to talk about the transfers to counties and absorption of the budgets or of the exchequer releases. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would end there. I hope I covered almost all the questions.
Thank you.
That was
Thank
asked.
you,
Thank you.
CS. If your question has not been adequately covered, it shall be covered in the due course before the CS leaves, because he has 3 more questions to respond to. Senator Muma, proceed to ask your question. Question number 060.
Honorable Speaker, my question to the Cabinet Secretaries, my questions to the Cabinet Secretary are as follows. 1, what was the allocation for development expenditure in the national government budget for the financial year 2022-2023, and could the Cabinet Secretary indicate the percentage of the expenditure that was financed by government ordinary revenue, loans, and grants from development partners? 2, how much of the development expenditure was spent on pending bills for projects commenced and or completed in preceding financial years? And could the Cabinet Secretary provide a list of these projects along with their corresponding amounts? 3, could the Cabinet Secretary provide a list of all development projects undertaken by the national government in the said financial year, specifying their names, sectors, locations, corresponding expenditure, completion dates, and indicate whether each project was initiated in the financial year or preceding financial years? 4, could the Cabinet Secretary provide details on all conditional grants by the national government to the counties in the said financial year, including the project names and the corresponding amounts, beneficiary counties, and any funding partners involved? And finally, were there any additional development funding or aid from development partners in the said financial year? And if so, could the Cabinet Secretary specify the amount and the projects funded along with their respective locations? Thank you.
Honorable CS, you may proceed to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This was questioned by nominated Senator Catherine Muma, and it is question number 060, number 60. The first leg of our question was that what was the allocation for development expenditure in the national government budget for the financial year 22-23, and could I indicate the percentage of the expenditure that was financed by government's ordinary revenue, loans, and grants from development partners? And my response is as follows. Honorable Speaker, in the original approved by the development budget for financial year 2022-23, we had an amount of 715.4 billion. Out of these amounts, 389.2 billion was to be funded through ordinary revenue, and the 292.8 billion was to be funded through loans. And again, 33.3 billion was through grants. However, the estimates were revised, I think a number of times, maybe thrice, if I'm not wrong, during the implementation of the budget. We had several supplementary budgets, and the final approved development estimates amounted to 583 billion, 200 million, 583.2 billion. This then comprised of 357.9 billion funded through ordinary revenue and 190.5 billion funded through loans, and 34.7 billion was funded through grants. How much, question number two was on how much of the development expenditure was spent on pending bills for projects commenced and or completed in preceding financial years, and could my office provide a list of these projects along with their corresponding amounts? My response is as follows, Honorable Speaker, that the details of the development expenditure spent on pending bills for projects commenced and or completed in preceding years, and the projects list and their corresponding amounts cannot be sourced from individual ministries, departments, and agencies. Mr. Speaker, this is a very, very complicated exercise if my ministry were to go to all ministries, because there is really not a distinction between new projects and carryovers. Why? Because the law is clear that before you make payments for the next financial year, you need to clear the pending bills of the previous year. So what happens is that ministries and departments just proceed and pay the pending bills like any other amount. So the reports that we get from ministries is usually on global figures of development and recurrent, without specifying how much was for previous financial year and how much is for the subsequent year. But I also want to add that usually every quarter, Controller of Budget provides information to Parliament, and I guess that report of the Controller General should also be coming to the Senate to indicate how ministries implement the budget. So this exercise, if I were to task and engage my officers to go to various ministries, it would take months, if not a year. But it is very possible, if the senators are concerned with Pacific ministry, then that information would easily be sourced. Now, on question number 3, where I'm required to provide a list of all development projects undertaken by the national government in the said financial year, which said financial year here is 22-23, specifying the names of the projects, the sectors where they are located, locations, corresponding expenditure, the completion dates, and whether each project was initiated in the said financial year or preceding financial year. I have, Mr. Speaker, attached a list of all projects which were implemented in the financial year in question, that is 22-23. You will find that under my submission, appendix number 1A and 1B. I am sure my team provided the appendices. Question number 4 was whether whether I could provide details on unconditional grants by the national government to the counties in the said financial year, including the project names and corresponding amounts, beneficiary counties, and any funding partners involved. Here, Honorable Speaker, during this financial year of 22-23, all additional allocations to the county government as specified in Section 5(1) or subsection 1 and subsection 2 of the County Government Additional Allocations Act of 2022 were classified as conditional grants. Okay? So the summary has been provided below, the first schedule and second schedule, and I've attached to this submission is the County Government Additional Allocation Act with detailed schedules of additional allocations to county governments in the said financial year. Funding sources, names of programs, projects allocated, amounts per beneficiary, counties. So that is under appendix number 2. But then I've supplied, I don't know, Mr. Speaker, whether this my additional information found its way to Parliament. I signed it this morning, a little late, because I wanted more details to be provided to the senators in terms of in terms of the project name, the amount, beneficiary counties, and financial. Some are GOK, some are IDA Bank, ETC, Danida, and others, World Bank. So, this, Mr. Speaker, I can table as additional information, if you permit me, just in case it didn't find its way, and I've signed it, it's addressed to the clerk of the Senate. So that is question number 4. Then question
Honorable CS, you may proceed to table the additional information.
Thank you. And the information is here with my signature. Now, question number 5, were there any additional development funding or aid from development partners in the said financial year? And if so, could the Cabinet Secretary specify the amount and the projects funded along with their respective locations? Mr. Speaker, the information I have is that there were no additional development funding from the development partners during the said financial year. I thank you.
Senator Muma may proceed to ask your 2 supplementary questions.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would want you, before I ask my supplementary questions, to note that the Treasury did not submit a response to question number 2. Instead, the Treasury has suggested that I get that information, or the Senate gets that information from the various ministries. Honorable Speaker, our Constitution has elaborate provisions on public finance. It actually contemplates that the Treasury, and the Treasury has been given that role to actually ensure that it has a macro view of what is happening in terms of fiscal matters in this country. So it is unfortunate that the Treasury would run away from actually responding to this. And Honorable CS, I'm aware when this question was brought, you had not been appointed, but I would want to give free advice that when anybody in this country wants to ask a question on the overview of the matters finance, it is you who will be asked. And you cannot afford to say, ask the ministries to tell you what is happening. So I suggest, Mr. Speaker, that you rule that the Treasury provides us with the information requested in my question number 2. Honorable Speaker, I want to appreciate also the Treasury for providing a huge document of the projects that were carried out in development in the financial year 2022-2023. But again, I want to give some counsel to CS that a better presentation of this information would help us to do our oversight better. I had requested specifically that the information be arranged in such a way that we are able to find out how many development projects happened in Isiolo, in Kakamega, in Mombasa, in Murang'a, and the information you've given is good information, but it is one has to dig in and actually do a lot more. Now, in your view, it will take months for your officers to do this. In my view, CS, you don't need your officers to do this. All you need to do is develop a template, send that template to the ministries, and the ministries will be able to give you that information
What is
within
your
2 weeks.
question, Senator Muma? Your supplementary question.
No, this is an important one, Speaker. A question was not answered, and I would want that the Treasury actually responds to that question. So I wanted you to actually rule that we get that extra information from the Treasury. Now to my question, I have done some analysis of this information, CS, and what I have found out is that the approved budgets is not exactly what is expended in actual fact. So we have reduced estimate at every supplementary estimate. We have reduced budgets, especially for the loans and the grants. So my question is, why are the multilateral and bilateral resources reducing every time, and what is the implication of this in terms of delays in getting the utility of the projects that we are passing, issues of honoring bilateral conditions, issues relating to incurring of more costs in fees and commissions, and issues of capacity? Is it that we don't have capacities to deliver on all of these projects? Bwana CS, I have analyzed, and if you check State Department of Technical Vocation, for instance, we only had a 30% performance of the grants available to that sector, 47% performance on the loans. The ASAL area, the Department for ASAL, had only 16% performance on the monies available to them from the loans and 55% performance on the grants. That means the people of Kenya are not getting the development that they need. What is the issue there? Secondly, what is the Treasury as the overall agency responsible for finance doing to ensure that actors at both national and county levels are able to uptake development funds?
Senator Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to join my colleagues to welcome Honorable Mbadi. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask a question on revenue. I believe it is related to development projects and the funding. Mr. Speaker, we have never gotten it right as far as the system on collection or automation of revenue in the counties are concerned. Mr. Speaker, over the years, we have even tried KRA to be collecting revenue on behalf of the counties. Again, recently, there was a proposal that they want to come up with a system that is actually going to take care of revenue automation in the counties, Mr. Speaker, so that we have a uniform system. Mr. Speaker, we are losing a lot of money in those counties, which could have actually complemented the budget allocated by the national government. CS, my question is, since you are the new broom, how can you ensure that the revenues collected at the county level, it's properly collected, and you come up with an automated system in all the counties? Because you will see that cash is collected in all the counties. Yesterday, we had actually Siaya County, where they are still collecting revenue cash. And it's actually 21st century today. Mr. Speaker, my question is, can you be able to come up with actually a system that is accepted across the board? Because governors are actually fighting that system. If you can be able to come up with a system, Kenyans are actually going to save a lot of money as far as revenue collected at the county level is concerned. I thank you.
Senator for Nandi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to ask the Cabinet Secretary, and I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker. You remember the former CS never stepped in this house even after we sanctioned. I want to thank Mr. Speaker, my simple question is, as at now, Waziri, what is the total pending bill by the national government? Because sometimes we hear that roads are only pending bill of 700 billion, plus as of today, what is the total both domestic and international debt that Kenya owes in this country? I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Mbugua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and allow me to join my colleagues in congratulating the CS. And I would want the CS to tell this House the specific amount of money the National Treasury owes in pending bills and what the government through the Treasury is doing to clear these bills because they're having a negative effect on our economy. Thank you.
Senator Professor Margaret Kamar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. May I congratulate the Minister and welcome him to the House. I worked with him in the 10th Parliament, in the Budget Committee, and I know how sharp he is. So he's truly the new broom in the House. Mr. Speaker, I had a problem with his first response when he referred us back to the individual ministries to get the pending bills. Does it mean that the Treasury does not know the pending bills and does not have these records? Because our assumption is that all the other ministries, money, as far as money is concerned, respond to Treasury, and when they have pending bills, they should be talking to Treasury. So I thought that was a very important question, that we needed to know the link between the ministries and Treasury as far as pending bills are concerned. Don't they have the data? Thank you.
Senator Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also wish to join my colleagues to congratulate the new CS, a colleague of mine for 10 years in National Assembly. I know you are a smart CS, and we believe you are going to do a lot of things there and help Kenyans. Mine, Honorable Speaker, is a comment from what Senator Tula said. You know, National Treasury has a system that is centralized, the IBMIS system that basically manages the expenditure at the counties. And I don't see the reason why they should not have an integrated revenue management system for the counties. The governors are fighting because they are stealing by collecting cash, they are stealing by having their own systems with their collaborators. So, Honorable Speaker, I want the CS to commit that by all means, that system, integrated revenue management system, has been rolled to seal the leakages of revenue at the counties.
Honorable CS, you may now proceed to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me say, in response to the supplementary question from the questioner, the Senator Catherine Moma, that question number 2, which was asking the specific pending bills that were paid in the financial year in question. It's not that I've refused or my ministry has refused to respond, but this may require a little bit, quite a bit of time because usually when payments are made by the ministries or state departments and MDS, we don't disintegrate that this one is now for pending bill and this is a new bill. We make payments continuously, and then the figure for pending bills are supplied at the end of the financial year. And I'll come to that because that is a question that Senator Margaret Kamar also asked. So I just thought that if maybe there are specific ministries where you are interested in knowing the specific pending bills that were paid, then that would have been supplied easily. But if this House finds that my ministry supplies this information, it will take a while, but we can still supply the information. On whether we could have a template, yeah, Honorable Speaker, maybe I just continue. I hope Senator Catherine could attend to...
Senator Muma, if
yes.
you've abandoned your questions.
Yeah, so she asked whether we could design a template to capture this information. Yes, we could. But again, you know, we have the Public Sector Accounting Standards Board, which determines the kind of systems that we use. It is a recommendation that we can put to the board so that they approve it, and then we have a system that would capture some of this information as and when they are onboarded to the system. Again, Senator, you are spot on that the approved budget is not what is expended. That is true. Our absorption level is very low, especially on donor-funded, so to speak, projects or projects funded through development partners, through loans and grants. And this is because of a number of reasons, some of which are internal, some also relate to the development partners. But a lot of issues is because of us. Number one, most of the donor-funded projects require counterpart funding. Sometimes we put the donor-funded projects in the budget without sufficient provision, or we end up reducing our budgets like it has happened in this financial year when we realize that we can't collect so much. So you find a deficit in the counterpart funding, which then would affect the donor-funded project, because for the development partners to release the money, they must be assured that the counterpart funding is guaranteed and is forthcoming. So that is a serious challenge that we must deal with. Secondly, there are also reporting issues raised by the development partners. But in terms of the strategy going forward, without going into the details why these absorptions have not been forthcoming or have not been smooth, we have a team that is looking into this matter, coordinated from my ministry, and we are going to address all these issues. Actually, just a few days, I think 2 days ago, I was dealing with a case of the Finnish government ready to provide us with grants, not even a loan. But then our delay, our internal systems are complicating the implementation of the same. So these are issues that are efficiency issues which must be dealt with. But there are also the other ones of budgetary issues. Those ones we must also have a strategy on how to make sure that if we are factoring funding in our budget from development partners, there must be a matching funds or the counterpart funding so that when it comes to implementation, the implementation becomes smooth. So that addresses your issue of how then would we ensure the uptake of these development funds. It is something that, especially now that funding is shrinking by the day, we must make sure that we clear the hurdles on these development-funded projects. Senator Dulo has raised serious concerns with the collection of revenue at the counties, and I can't agree more. There is already a proposal which has gone to an advanced stage to have a system, a standardized system for collection of revenue in counties. There is no reason why we should operate like we are 48 governments. We are actually a country with devolved systems of governments, but we need to have a standardized system so that if you come from Isiolo, you go to Homa Bay, it's almost predictable. If you are a business person, what to pay, how much to pay, and even how to pay it should be standardized. So that process is ongoing. Unfortunately, consensus has not been reached with the Council of Governors. I appeared before the last and my first IBEC meeting, and this matter is still under discussion. I hope soon we are going to find a way forward, because we also don't want to upset the county government, because there is a level of autonomy. We don't want to impose a system on them. It is the responsibility of the Ministry of Finance, which is the National Treasury, to design a system to help all spending units have a system that is efficient. But again, we know that county governments also enjoy some level of autonomy. We want to bridge that gap so that we agree. That, I think, is being coordinated by the Deputy President, who is the chair of IBEC, and soon we will come up with a solution. Honorable Cheragay has asked me a direct question on what is the total pending bills. And your question, I would tie it to the question that has been raised by Senator Margaret Kamar. You know, Senator Kamar, you started wishing me well in the 10th Parliament. I don't know what you saw, but you kept on saying that there is somewhere where I'll reach. I don't know whether now you can tell me whether I've reached where you wanted me to reach, or you still feel I'm going far. But it is not that we don't know how much is pending bills. What is not clear is the authenticity of the pending bills that is being reported. Remember, pending bills in Kenya, we have been using what we call cash basis of accounting. So pending bills or money owed to the government by the government of Kenya to various citizens who are service providers. Actually, we should not even call them pending bills. These are debts owed to people. These amounts, we are not very clear about them because they don't form the body of our financial statements. In cash basis, they are reported as notes off balance sheet. So they really, we don't treat them with the, we don't give them the weight that we should. We are moving, beginning this financial year, to accrual basis, where now pending bills will form part of our balance sheet, of our financial reporting. But right now, the reports that we have is that pending bills that which were submitted, because we formed the pending bills committee. Yeah? It is called Pending Bills Verification Committee. What was submitted to them was 664 billion shillings, owed by the national government, not the counties. Now, this amount will definitely come down. From the indication, because we have not even received an interim report, I gather that the pending bills may be just in the region of 400 or so billion, meaning about 200 and so billion could have been fictitious. But let me wait for the final report to be submitted, or even an interim report to be submitted by this committee. So we know the pending bills. On roads, which Honorable Cheragay mentioned, at least we know that we owe cumulatively about 167 billion to the various road contractors. And that is why you see across the country, all road projects have stalled. And quite a significant portion of this is on interest and penalties charged by these contractors for idle equipment, which